Today I'm sharing 4 of my favorite beginner-friendly napkin decoupage ideas. Walmart sells these little terracotta pots for 97 cents each. If you're a beginner at decoupage and you haven't really decoupaged anything that's round, these are perfect to test that on. You can paint these up using a multi-surface paint. This is really inexpensive. You can grab for $1.67 at Walmart. Works amazing on terracotta. I applied 2 layers to this, and if you want to use chalk paint or a clay-based chalk paint, you go right ahead. That would also cover these well. But I wanted to show you here once they were fully dry just how nice this paint ends up on these pots. Then pick your poison, my friends. I'm using a napkin for this piece. I'm tearing off the corner to remove all the sneaky layers. So this way we have the top decorative layer, and then we're going to do a technique I like to call patchwork, which is where you can use the designs in one singular napkin, or you can use the designs in multiple napkins. Tear out the sections that you want and then patch them onto whatever you're decoupaging. I'm going to be using DIY's liquid patina for our medium. If you're ever interested in grabbing any of the DIY items you see me use, I keep a link down in my description box. Sammy over at Unicorn Dust Design sells it. To apply our medium, I'm going to use a fan brush, and I'm taking just a little bit of it, brushing it on our pots, and then taking our little napkin patch that we pulled apart and placing it very gingerly in place. I'm using a dry sponge that I have cut down. I picked these up in packs from Walmart, and I'm just pressing directly over the napkin. This helps to grab any extra medium that comes through the little pores in the napkin, helps reduce wrinkles, and then sometimes I like to go over this once it's completely attached with a little bit of cling wrap and smooth things out just a bit. I use the same technique for the rest of this pot, and then on the other pot I use the same technique but different pieces of our napkin. You can let these completely dry and then seal over them if you want. I personally like to come back over the edges of the napkins with the paint that I applied onto the background of our piece. You can do this in several different ways. If you have a very textured napkin, using a clay chalk base paint or a chalk paint works really well. But for this, since it was pretty seamless as it is, I'm just taking the same multi-surface paint. I am going over the edge and then taking my finger and just blending it. So any little parts that don't seem to match up, they're going to blend into the rest of the pot, and you won't be able to tell where your napkin ends and where your pot begins. These 1x3s and turn them into some tags. And people, don't stress. If you don't have this laying around, you can pick these up very inexpensively at Home Depot. And the length of these joints is completely up to you. I decided to make one shorter, and I started by cutting that first, and then I just put it on top of the other one, measured to make sure the other one was slightly bigger, and cut it down. Now, if you notice, see how you're getting to the end of your board and this is wiggly? Little trick, put a larger piece of wood on the opposite side, hold it in place, and then cut it down, so this way you don't worry about your little fingers getting cut. For our little corner pieces at the top of our tag, I'm using a 45-degree angle cut on the miter saw, and this piece is super tiny, so I didn't want to use the little clamp that the miter saw had, and chance it flipping up, I took another piece of wood and held it down while I cut it. And people, this goes without saying, mistakes will be made, you know, okay? It's trial and error. It's not a perfect science here. I definitely watch this, my first shot, and I've cut a lot of wood, so I had to make adjustments and, you know, just work it on in. But eventually I got this. We're not done yet. We're not done. We got to clamp this down and drill a hole in these suckers to create our tag look. So we're going to need to bring in the drill, and you're going to need to make sure you got a drill bit that fits the size of the job. I am using this one right here. Okay, this one. And no, I didn't find the center. I just stuck that sucker right down on top of the wood and went, this looks good, and started drilling. Okay, this literally takes like 2 seconds. It's definitely the easiest part of the creating process. Once you're done that, sand them all down. I used a 400 grit sandpaper to get these nice and buttery smooth. But I do want to share with you this. Whenever you're drilling a hole through something, a lot of times the back will get chipped up. I just pulled the pieces off, and we're going to hide over this with some black chalk paint. It's really not a big deal. These are going to be rustic anyway. And if they're not, you could use white paint and just sand it down even more to smooth it out. I wasn't stressing it, you know what I'm saying? But you guys do you. I'm just telling you what I'm doing for these pieces right here. For our design on the front, we're going to decoupage these. Are you surprised? Because you shouldn't be. Now, today I'm going to show you how to blend in your napkin so that it looks like it's part of the wood. And to do that, we're going to use some white matte acrylic paint and some water. But first... I'm sorry. I think I rewatched it like 3 times. Like, why am I the only one that has to suffer through the weird ASMR noises and you guys just to have everything muted? Anyhow, I thinned out this paint a lot. It is going to just give us a light coverage over the wood. And for those of you that are like, Brandy, why do we even need to do this at all? Painting your wood is going to allow that napkin design to pop through. If you just leave it completely blank, you're going to completely see the wood grains through the napkin, and it's going to not look very blended. It's going to look a little off. If you give it a little bit of a white hue like this, it allows that wood grain to still shine through your napkin, but not so overpowering that the design is kind of canceled out. I hope that makes some sense. Normally I would just completely paint it white, but I really want the napkin design to show through and look like it's completely part of our little tags we have here. To create that blend, so this way it's not just black on the back, white on the front, and then we have some splotchy pieces where we have that wood grain, I'm taking some of Antique's Waverly Wax and a little sponge and just kind of going over the whole piece. And people, don't let me hold you back. You want to do this with transfers, you want to do this with your Cricut and create a little vinyl piece on here. The ideas are truly endless with these little tag pieces. I just thought it was a really cool idea to take some scrap wood you have laying around and create something different. Now, as you notice, I am not bringing that wax on the front where we have that paint. I'm just blending it in. And by the way, these little, you know, plunger pieces, they fit in this hole perfectly, and in like 2 seconds cover the whole thing up. That really saved me a lot of time. Look at that. I let these dry for about an hour before starting our decoupage aspect, but I wanted to share with you that if you wanted to leave these just like this, or create these so you could resell them and people could DIY them however you want, that'd be a great idea. Now let's bring in our napkin, okay? And if you're new to me, hi, my name is Brandy. I have napkin issues, and I also sell napkin bundles on my website. If you're ever interested in anything you see me decoupaging or using napkins with, you can check that out. I always have some sort of bundle available there. For our medium, I'm going to be using just regular matte Mod Podge. You can grab these at Dollar Tree. And for our application, I'm going to be using a fan brush. I like to use these because they're super thin around the edges. And whenever I'm doing napkins, it helps me to double check to make sure we have a nice bond to our piece with the napkin without tearing up the edges on the napkin using another product. You guys can use whatever works for you. And people, if you're looking for more information on decoupage, I have a bunch of content on that. I can link them down in the description box. Go ahead and check them out. Keep in mind they are a little tutorial-ish and lengthy, but they will help you gain some more information on how to do this technique. To help me apply our napkin, I'm just using a dry sponge here and pressing down. This is also soaking up any of the Mod Podge that is pressing through the napkin. And people, in case I didn't mention this before, the iron-on method, whenever you're decoupaging, it's the most flawless way to attach a napkin to minimize wrinkles. But since I create content for you at home, I like to use the sponge method. It's a little bit faster for me. I took the X-Acto knife after the napkin was completely dry and some sandpaper to get everything off. You do not want to sand or try to cut this until it is dry. And you also don't want to apply your top seal until everything is completely dry. But here they are. I love how these turned out so much. I love me some good plate wall decor. I picked this galvanized plate up some time ago from Christmas tree shops for a whole $6.99. It already has a hook on there. There is a little bit of weight to it. We are going to need to cover up this flag though. I'm sorry. Please don't hate me. Don't be attacking me in the comments. It doesn't mean I don't love our country. I absolutely do. It's just a piece of decor. Okay. We're going to take some of this chalk paint and just go over the center to give it a nice base so we can take a napkin and put right over it. And people, I love this napkin. And the pattern, it's continuous throughout the whole thing. I love napkins like this. I feel like you get so much out of them. Now we're going to also need to trim this joint down, and you can do that a couple ways, but if you're a beginner, let me let you in on a little secret. Don't go removing the sneaky layer right away with something like this, okay? You want to have room to mess this up. And I say that because we're not able to just really put a crease around this and match up with the paint that we put on the inside of here. We're going to need to kind of eyeball this and go around gingerly. I'm using a wet paintbrush and I'm taking my finger and separating it. If you wet this and then you press along the napkin, it allows you to see underneath, and then you can follow along where you have that white paint. And the reason you want to keep the sneaky layers on is because it actually helps absorb that water, allowing you to not completely saturate just the top layer, which gets super thin once it's wet. It will absorb some of that extra water, stopping you from actually ruining the top decorative layer and giving you some play as you're trimming the piece completely down. If you do not want to do it like this, another option would be to place your napkin over top of the plate, just like we did here. Grab a pencil and trace it gingerly around where the crease is. Cut your design out and then put it back down on the plate. Trace that with a pencil and then paint that in and then apply your napkin. This is just something I like to do. So as I go around, I can decide whether or not I think cutting it, because sometimes if you cut the napkin down, the sharp edge will look off. So this way it allows me to kind of play with leaving that edge frayed, or decide once I get it all off if I want to trim it down and smooth it out, if that would give me a better finish. Again, it's completely up to you and how you want to do this. I just feel like for me, this helps to give me options before I just stick that sucker on there and then I'm crap out of luck. For our attachment, I just used some Mod Podge with a fan brush and did little by little, section by section. I did take my dry sponge. This is just a little dry sponge that I like to cut in half. I picked these up in a pack from Walmart, and they help to just press down your design. Using them with a napkin, they also kind of absorb any excess Mod Podge that might seep up through your napkin, help to minimize wrinkles. You can use your cling wrap or whatever method you would like to attach your napkin. This little sponge trick is just something I've been doing for years, and I happen to love the way it works. You can take this next part or leave it. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to use a little bit of Dixie Belle gilding wax to go around the edges just to blend the napkin in more with the paint. And I was going to do this anyway, even if I did miss this section right here. So it's a good learning curve anyway. In case you at home also make this mistake, you can take some silver paint or whatever color your plate is or your background is if you cut your pieces too short, and just go slightly around the edges. This will help it look more blended. Just be mindful with how much you're applying so it doesn't bulk up and wet the napkin and tear anything, and make sure it's completely dry. You can seal over this if you want. I did with a little bit of the same Mod Podge I used to apply our napkin, and I love how amazing this turned out. If you're ever looking for another spot for some inexpensive glassware, don't leave Walmart out. They have these pretty vases for $1.57 and a couple others that are inexpensive as well. I grabbed these and painted this up with some Waverly White chalk paint and Snow Whites. We're going to use a fan brush to create what I like to call a patch method on this beautiful vase using this stunning napkin. How pretty is this? Now, if you're skilled, right? If you're skilled, you can just take this sucker and wrap it completely around the vase. I've done this before many times, but it can be an extreme struggle to minimize wrinkles whenever you're doing that. And for a beginner, it can seem so frustrating and almost make you want to quit trying to wrap a napkin around anything that is shaped like a cylinder. So once you've removed your top decorative layer, get to sectioning out the little designs that you want, like this. And do that by whatever means necessary, people. If you want to cut yours out, you go right ahead. My carpal tunnel can't handle that, so I just tear them on up into little sections. I'm going to use Mod Podge as my medium. Absolutely use whatever medium you feel is best for you. This is just what I have on hand, one of a few. And I also feel like it's easily accessible and affordable to most of you at home. Apply some thin sections and then start gently pressing down your napkin. Now, at this point, I personally like to bring in my little sponge. This is a dry sponge. I picked these up in a pack from Walmart. You most certainly can use whatever method you find will help you best to flatten out your napkin. I like to use this as well in the event that I have too much Mod Podge in certain sections. It will grab any excess. The fan brush I love for napkins because on and around the edges, it allows me to stick that sucker right up in there because the edge is so thin on the fan brush. Apply a little bit of extra Mod Podge and then go gingerly around the edges, flattening anything out that might be sticking up. I repeated this process for each one of the little patches that I ripped out. As you can see here, you can slightly see the edges of the napkin. I like to take some of the same exact paint that I applied on our background as our base and tappity tap around the edges. And then I'll take my finger and pull that paint. So this way it doesn't leave a harsh edge. And it really just helps to make the napkin even more seamless around whatever we're applying it on. And absolutely seal over this. I do wait until the next day. So this way the napkin has a chance to completely dry. And this will also give us an advantage on creating less wrinkles, allowing the first layer to dry overnight. If you're looking for more decoupage help, check out this video right here. And as always, people, thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. I appreciate you so much. Until next time.